So at this point, let me turn it over to Kim Coontz to talk about California Center for Cooperative Development, co-ops in general, and the particular type of co-op, limited equity housing cooperatives, that we're proposing to create at Westwinds. Kim?
Thank you. I want to start by, I think we might lose the ability for you to see some of our staff. And so I just want to start even before I introduce our nonprofit by just introducing two staff members that are also here, or asking them to introduce themselves. I don't know, Luis, if you can get on, but Jamie, you want to just briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Jamie. I'm the Cooperative Business Specialist at CCCD. I've been here a little over 3 years now, first as a student intern and then as staff. I primarily work on the business plans for the worker co-ops, and I'm slowly making my way towards housing co-ops. And this past year has been a lot of learning and definitely a lot to learn, but really excited to be here. So thank you.
Luis?
Can I be heard?
Yep.
Oh, excellent. Great. I am assistant director.
Can you turn on your camera, Luis? Can you turn on your camera?
Yeah. No, it doesn't look like I can.
Okay.
Nope, I cannot. Okay. So sorry, can't see me. As assistant director, I also work with housing cooperatives and have worked over the past year with 4 different kinds of housing co-ops, including 1 manufactured home park. And I also, outside of work, when I go home, I am a member of a limited equity housing cooperative, and I'm also treasurer. I serve on the board of directors. I've lived at Dos Pinos Limited Equity Housing Co-op now for 11 years and have served in leadership role for about 6 years. So I bring that, the actual, I know what it's like to sit in your seat as prospective member, a member, and maybe for some of you, future directors. Thanks.
Thanks. So I'm going to turn on the share screen. I have a short PowerPoint to kind of delve into some of the facts about limited equity housing cooperatives, and hopefully that's going to work okay here. Here we go. That coming across okay? Good, good, okay. So just a little bit about our nonprofit, the California Center for Cooperative Development. We're a nonprofit, and our whole purpose is on developing and supporting California cooperatives. Between Jamie and Luis and I, we have almost 50 years of experience in cooperatives. Our nonprofit provides services to all different kinds of cooperatives, and we're really happy to have an expanding role in the realm of housing cooperatives. So basically, what is a manufactured housing cooperative? It's a development that is jointly owned by the residents, and that means the property and the buildings are cooperatively owned. The members still individually own their manufactured home, and the cooperative corporation that owns the entire development is democratically governed by the residents, and each household has 1 vote. Let's look a little bit about how an LEHC works. The residents own the cooperative corporation. Now, the way the financing works on this is that the co-op secures what we call a blanket mortgage. That means the entire property is financed under 1 loan. And usually the biggest obstacle to any kind of cooperative development is financing. The great thing here is that we have 2 sources of financing in California that are specifically focused on resident-owned manufactured home communities. One is a state program called the Mobile Park Rehabilitation and Resident Ownership Program, a mouthful, that's why we call it MPROP, and ROC USA Capital. So these are specifically designed to finance resident-owned communities. In the limited equity housing co-op, residents purchase a membership share in the corporation. And as a ROC community, that's going to be $1,000 or less. The equity in a equity housing cooperative is limited, so that the amount that you can sell that share for is not unlimited. And then members of the cooperative pay what we call a carrying charge. And the carrying charge is basically the same as your rent. It's going to cover your, the management, the mortgage price, all those costs are going to be divided up, and in the cooperative, you pay that monthly charge. Then I want to talk a little bit about why consider cooperative ownership. And let's think about all the decisions that have to be made in a manufactured home community. You need to think about fee increases, right? Maintenance, what things are priority, what things aren't, the services that are going to be provided in the community, what the rules are going to be, what the policies are going to be, and whether the park is going to sell, whether it closes, those kinds of decisions. And in some ways, for the resident perspective, could be termed as resident self-determination in terms of being the decision maker on these decisions, or vulnerability, because the answer to all of these questions are going to depend on your perspective, right? If you are an owner of a manufactured home park and you rent it out, you need to make sure that you get some profit from that. You need to make sure that you have pay. So all of these decisions are going to factor that in. If you are a resident-owned community, the answers to these questions are going to be, the perspective is going to be from the resident perspective. What's best for residents in all of these kinds of decisions? So when we look at resident ownership, we look at operations at cost. There's no need for profit. We want to make things as inexpensive as possible, as efficient as possible, and we also want to have a nice community. Residents have a direct voice in policies and in the operations, and there's no risk of displacement in a resident-owned manufactured home park. When residents rent their space, they incur regular rent increases. They have no voice in policies. There's no ownership involved, and there is a risk of displacement. I want to talk about transactions now, because I'm sure that would be the next thing that you'd be wondering about. Well, what happens if I want to leave? What happens if I need to sell, and so forth? If a member wants to sell, they're selling both their share in the cooperative and their manufactured home. The limited equity housing, the limited equity part sets a cap on what you can sell that share price for, but it does not share it for the manufactured home. Now, the co-op may have restrictions on the resale. There's probably, you're going to have some credit checks. There's going to be a member review process. Those are all decided in the bylaws of the cooperative. Another part about the limited equity housing co-op is that if it sells, it has to sell to a 501c3 nonprofit or a government entity. So this is to make sure that there's not speculation involved. And again, this is about security and maintaining long-term affordability for the cooperative. Let's spend just a minute just taking a look at how governance is made in the cooperative. All governance of all cooperative enterprise, housing cooperatives included, are democratic on the basis of one, in this case, every household has one vote. All members are eligible to vote. And usually, especially in a large park like this, we're going to elect a board of directors. That board of directors is accountable and representing the members. We still have to have management, right? So the board of directors is going to select, secure, and oversee a management company. And they're going to make those day-to-day decisions, but the policies and so forth are those that have been developed by the board and by the members. Here I want to try to finish up by I love this graphic. I've used it so much, the quality is diminished a bit, but in a condominium association, each individual owner owns a divided piece of the whole property. So each person has a piece of that pie. In a housing cooperative, all the members combined own an undivided share of the property, so they own the whole pie together. And in a rental, don't own any of the pie, right? So I want to spend a minute. I know there's been some discussion about condoization and instead of having a resident-owned community as a cooperative, having it as a condo. And so I just want to spend a minute talking about that. A condo is an option. I want to talk about who benefits most and how that's the most lucrative. Immediately, the beneficiaries of condos are lawyers, because it is very complex to make a community into a condo, and the current owner. If you think about the price for this property, if you want to put a premium price on this property, divide it up into pieces, because you're not only just selling one piece of property, you're owning a whole lot of pieces of property. That transaction is going to cost a lot of money. There's a lot more risk involved in that, and so the cost is going to be higher. So the most benefit from condoization right now is to the current seller, and incidentally, also lawyers in that process. So just to recap on the advantages of resident ownership is operations at cost, to stabilize monthly housing expenses over the long term, to secure the value of the home, and in that making the home easier to sell. A secure resident-owned community is desirable. It protects your park from closure or being changed to another use. And ultimately, residents are determining what is best for the community. So that's just like a very quick overview, and I hope we can come back and delve into cooperatives in more detail. I really like the topic. But basically, that's the overview, and I look forward to later on answering any questions that you have. I'm gonna stop the screen share here that I have and hand it back over to others.